So 5-MeO functions in that sort of capacity where when we get the egoic structure out of the way, the body will process all of this, and it will process the emotions, it will process the residuals, it will process the traumas, and it does it without the person needing to do anything about it.
Mm-hmm.
And then as the ego comes back, then it will find, oh, now I'm freed of this overwhelming depression I've been having for the past 10 years or whatever it may be. So it can then allow the person to come to a greater state of clarity of how those dysfunctional patterns got created in the first place, and empowers them to choose not to engage in them in the future. So it really does, it changes someone's egoic identity, and it also has the potential to cure a lot of the existential problems of the ego. So the ego is what allows us to say, who am I? What is this? Where am I? What's going on? Who's in charge? What am I supposed to do? What's right? What's wrong? What's good? What's bad? And then the ego spends a lot of its life looking to answer those questions, or it turns to religion, or it turns to politics, or it turns to culture and society to answer those questions, and then say, am I following the things that everybody else thinks, and does that make me good or whatever? So it can provide this sort of non-dual therapy in the sense that if you get to directly experience yourself as God, participating in any kind of organized religion becomes really problematic, because it's like, religion, that's a construct of the ego. I'm not really interested. Also, the ego tends to be pretty afraid of dying. But this is a process of essentially having an ego death and of dying. And so it can really cure people of actually being afraid of dying. And it doesn't mean people are like, yeah, I want to die, but it's like, oh, I think I've been through the process, and it's actually pretty cool on the other end of that. So it can, in a sense, it can cure a lot of the existential anxieties of the ego, and could make the ego more resilient, so that people are less prone to just buying into belief systems or mythologies or cultural relativities. And then you are less susceptible to being manipulated by religion or by culture or by politics. So it actually creates a more resilient individual. So I do think that there's lots of therapeutic potential there. And because it can release trauma and depression and anxiety and things like that, that it's something that a lot of research institutes are now looking at, because it might do it in a profound way that's easier to work with than, say, a 6-hour mushroom journey. Like, well, you can be in and out with 5-MeO in 30 minutes. So they are looking at it as a kind of therapeutic tool. And even one area that some research institutes are looking at now is, can they produce a non-psychedelic derivative of 5-MeO DMT that does not produce a psychedelic or non-dual experience, but also can relieve anxiety, depression, PTSD, and they're doing research with mice around that. And it's kind of questionable about whether, because I do think that the therapeutic action of 5-MeO DMT, I do think, is dependent on the non-dual release that it produces. So I'm a bit skeptical. And I've actually contacted one of these research institutes, and I've sent them an email saying, please come on my podcast and talk about it, because I'm interested, but we need to talk about it.